Welcome to another edition of the Dublin Coffman Marching Band Network. If you enjoy the content of this series, please like and subscribe so you can keep up with the current editions and of all of our amazing contributors. With us today is Justin Wilt, a 1998 graduate. How are you, Justin?
Doing good. How are you?
Doing good. Hey, I am excited to sit down and talk with you. You and I knew each other when you were in high school. I was your private percussion teacher, and it's going to be exciting for everyone to hear the journey that you are currently on and that happened after you graduated from high school. Justin, can you break down for us a little bit? When you were a student here at Dublin Coffman High School, how did you feel as far as the things that you learned through schooling and the things that you did on the side? I know you weren't an inventor, but you were very handy working with wood and wood crafting. And of course, you were a musician. Take us through a little bit of what Justin Wilt was like as a high school.
Oh, wow. High school was interesting for me because, as you know, a lot of people probably know too, I wasn't really the best student in the world. I typically had a car magazine or something else stuffed in a school book. But later in my high school years, I was very into woodworking, making musical instruments, and spent most of my time in the industrial tech room, where I felt comfortable. I think I had maybe 3 or 4 periods worth of industrial technology classes as a senior. And I was fortunate enough that they had changed the curriculum a little bit, so I wasn't required to do as many of the other courses to graduate back then. And I was able to take multiple different hands-on courses, if you will. My brother and I and some friends, we were always into something, making something, and I always tell people that we mainly did stuff like that just to prove we could do it, and always making some sort of contraption, motor scooters. My brother was a really good sewer. He would make parachutes and all kinds of weird stuff, and we were, I guess you'd call it the anomaly. Went from that type of stuff to when I started driving, I got real heavy into fixing cars, my own car. As most people know that were in that time range of school with me, I had that old 74 Beetle. Actually, I still have it. And that's what got the whole car thing going for me. Was not really by choice so much, but the fact that I could handle fixing a car to keep it going, to get to work and to get to school and back. Between that and marching band and work, I was pretty busy. Music, I think I started taking lessons from you in 1992, up until the point that you left and moved to Texas, I believe. So yeah, we go way back. In the band situation, but kind of outside of it, yeah. And you knew about all my side projects and all that kind of stuff. Once a week, I'd probably come in and tell you what I constructed or destructed for that week.
So Justin, take me through now. You are currently working as a technician, and you are working on Bentleys, you are working on Rolls-Royces, you're working on Bugatti cars, and these are some of the most expensive cars that I'm aware of. Tell us, what is your kind of day-to-day activities that you do in your own hands-on environment at your occupation?
Yeah, so my main job role, I'm the shop foreman, which is basically the shop manager, and there's 5 of us in the shop, technicians, and my role it's a bit different. We set out to try this about 4 years ago. So they moved me into the position of managing the 4 technicians, including myself. I dispatch the repair orders, which when a customer comes in with a complaint, it all goes on a repair order. I'm sure many of you have been to the wonderful world of getting your car fixed. So that on the back end of that, I'm managing all that, and really my main role in a repair sense is I get a lot of the cars that come back, a lot of the difficult to fix cars, the time consuming things that I don't want to tie the other guys up with. And then that goes all the way to litigation. If we have a car that ends up in the courts for whatever various reasons, I end up with those. And I spend a lot more time these days behind a laptop computer than I do turning a wrench. But I still do turn wrenches and all that kind of stuff. But that's in a nutshell the main thing that I do. And on the back end of that, I help with training. Just anything that has to do with the shop and my guys. Deliveries, getting rid of waste oil, getting rid of scrap metal. All that stuff falls under my net of job responsibility, if you will.
So, Justin, in setting this up, you are extremely accomplished at what you do. You have made your life and your career into being an extremely successful auto technician and now manager. And as you went through your high school to where you are now, that's kind of the journey that I want to focus on. I think that is going to be something that's going to be awesome for our current students and our band family to hear about. But I remember you as a junior in high school, a senior in high school. I can remember you being frustrated once or twice. And you were frustrated because you weren't getting the grades that maybe some of your peers were getting. And at the same time, you would walk in, and I remember you making a paintball gun from scratch, and where you used a fire extinguisher, and you were detailing me all of these details of how you created a paintball gun from scratch just because you wanted to. Back then, there wasn't YouTube for you to follow something like this, right? You were doing this out of your and where you came from in your mindset. And I knew at that time that Justin Wilt was brilliant, that he had a great future in front of him. But yet your future in academia wasn't exactly stellar, if you could say that. So what was it when you graduated high school? What was your outlook in what you were going to do? And maybe take us through the what you did right after graduation that kind of led to where you are now.
Okay. Yeah, no, I was not a very good student, if you will, in the way of academics. I was all about working with my hands and really just hard work. And to be quite honest, I wouldn't probably not be where I'm at if it wasn't for the band program and the structure of that. And that was a thing that my parents forced me to do early on, and then it became an enjoyable activity, as much work as it was. But I'm glad that that's one thing that I stuck with was music and band. Even though I was not a very good music reader, I was a visual, and I would listen to things and figure it out. And believe it or not, the majority of the band work that I did was all basically watching the other guys read the music and play the parts. It's just the way my brain works. But yes, that and we were probably we were pretty well known at Roush Hardware because we were in there going through things. We bring stuff in there like, what are you up to now, type of thing. And I guess that's just the way I'm wired. But the only problem with high school at that time was the alternative to the normal path, if you will, of getting the best grades you could, and then going on to college and then pursuing that path. That wasn't for me. It wasn't my thing. I would have done horrible in college, and I probably would have wasted a lot of money and time. And I just wasn't set up for that at all. And I think I've told you before that I got all the way up to graduation, and I still really didn't know what I wanted to do. I think maybe in the yearbook it says unknown, and a lot of people would put the colleges they were going to, and I had a neighbor whose father was a vocational teacher out in Texas, and he would come visit every once in a while, and he'd always see me tinkering with something. He was a car guy, and he said, "Well, there's a school you can go to for this," and he set me up with a recruiter, if you will. And it was probably about 3 weeks later, I signed up to go to Universal Technical Institute, which was automotive, diesel, and HVAC school. And so that was kind of the path I took. I really didn't know what I wanted to do, but I kind of, agreed with my parents and my neighbor Liz that, she made me kind of realize that I was good with the car thing, and that's probably something I should pursue. So I took that course up there in Illinois, Glendale, just outside of Chicago, and it was about 3 weeks shy of a year, and that basically got my piece of paper, if you will, and it filled in a lot of gaps in the automotive world. And my mom got a phone call probably around Thanksgiving, and it was from a guy I used to take my car to when I got in over my head, which happened a few times where I didn't have the right tools or the ability to do something. And I had my senior year, I had completely torn that Volkswagen apart and tore the engine apart. And my parents were reminded of Christmas all over again, because my brother and I, we would get our Christmas presents and immediately tear them apart and to see how they worked. So, yeah, I tore that whole thing apart and overhauled the engine. Well, I had my brother take it over to him to do the initial run-in, and he actually called my mom and said, "Hey, what's your son doing? I could give him a job." And she said, "Well, it's funny you mentioned that. He's going through this schooling." And so I pretty much had that job set up, and that's where I was the year after high school. I did that, like I said, 3 weeks shy of a year, and then I had a job essentially ready for me when I graduated in July the following year.
So, Justin, you started working on VWs, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
And then you made your way to the Midwestern Auto Group here in town, MAG, as we call it. And,
Yep.
And like I said, now you're working on Bentleys and Rolls-Royces and Bugatti. Tell us, what if someone is interested in your field, how do you take those steps from, graduating from technical school to working on some of the most expensive cars in the world?
I get that question a lot. A lot of people come and ask me, they're like, "Oh, what school did you go to? How did you learn how to work on these cars?" And it's just kind of a series of events, because when I graduated UTI, I went to go work, and I worked on old Volkswagens, basically war era 1944. I would work on some old German military vehicles all the way up to 1980. And then I kind of got to the point where it's like, this, I don't particularly like this much, this stuff much anymore. So I ended up transitioning into more modern vehicles, and then that's how I ended up at Midwestern Auto Group, basically through another former coworker that had moved up there, and he went up there and he told those guys, he said, "Well, this guy's better than I am." And so I really didn't have to go through a whole lot to interview there, and I ended up taking that job. Well, in I can't remember the exact year 2000, around there, Bentley split up, and the Bentley brand was sold to Volkswagen, and the Rolls-Royce brand was sold to BMW. So what ended up happening is you had a British car manufacturer that was bought by two German companies, and then they took and put German technology into them. So 2004, they released the Bentley Continental GT, which was basically all Volkswagen, Audi technology, and then they released the Rolls-Royce Phantom the same year, which was all BMW technology. What ended up happening is you had a lot of these older British technicians that were used to the old British style cars had this thrown in their laps, and they're just like, what do we do? And I was out on the parking lot at MAG one day and talking to the service director. He said, "What are you doing?" I said, "Not a whole lot today." He said, "Do your box down here. I got some work I need you to finish up," and it was all on Bentleys. And I spent about a week helping them catch up, and I said, "Oh, I'm gonna head on back to BW. He's like, no, you're not. You're staying here, and that's how I got into Bentley. And believe it or not, at the time it was kind of like drawing the short straw because these were very, very difficult cars to work on. There wasn't an abundance of them, and so it took kind of a different person to more or less take a little bit of a pay cut to learn something new. And I was always under that mindset that if I kept pursuing this, it would get, nothing good happened in a small amount of time. So it took some time. But yeah, so I spent, I don't know, 6 months or so doing that before my wife was transferred down here to Houston. But that's probably the next part of the story in my career. But if you're going from, say, like a technical school, UTI does offer programs where they can put you directly into a VW or BMW or Porsche nowadays, and you can actually go take their training class and graduate. And they actually have placement programs. I've got one guy working for me right now that did the Porsche course out of UTI, and he's probably one of the best technicians that I have. He's one of the guys that give him something, he'll come and ask me a question, and it's not coming back, and he knows exactly the path he's going with the car. So he's very, very good technician, and UTI is another one of those things that you get out of it what you put into it. I think it's just like anything else. I suppose if I would have put more into high school, I probably would have gotten more out of it academically, but that's just not the way that I was wired. So then, yeah, you can go that route out of a technical school. I know guys that come straight out of high school. They're just very, very handy people, and it's amazing how many people like me that I've run into over the years that have the same story as me. It's just unfortunate that a lot of places, they don't have automotive programs anymore. They don't have any kind of industrial tech programs anymore in high school, and it would be so great to see more of that. Mike Rowe is a big proponent of that sort of field, and so I follow him quite a bit. But there is plenty to do out there besides go to college and do the quote unquote normal way of doing things. And that's just how I ended up. There's multiple ways I could have gone about it. I could have gone to Columbus State, got an associate's degree, and gone through their automotive program. I looked at Columbus State's aviation program, go through the aviation program, and I worked with a number of guys that did that worked on planes for a very short period of time, and then they went into cars or forklifts or heavy diesel. And it's just crazy, especially down here in the oil industry, how much mechanically inclined people there are down here that have these jobs that are paying quite a bit of money that you would never suspect was that way. So,
Justin, in your high school time, you had Dr. Keller as a band director. I was just a private teacher for you.
Yep.
Tell us what was your experience? You mentioned that your high school marching band experience was something important to you. What was it that still lives with you to this day that you can remember back to your high school time that are things that are helpful for you as a professional?
To be early is to be on time. Everybody says that one. It's funny how you remember. I still remember. You could put a set of quads in front of me, and I'd still remember music from them. From that era. It's just all that stuff is so ingrained in you, and I guess it's kind of a military type attitude towards approaching things. Yeah, I can honestly say I would not be where I'm at today if it wasn't for you and Dr. Keller being there for a lot of us. And you look at a lot of the graduates that were band members, and I mean, just the amount of success that these people have is unreal. I've watched some of your videos, and it's crazy to me to see these people in these positions, and you can I honestly credit that to the band program. It's discipline and and that's where it transitions into my job: discipline, work ethic, and time management. Really, my job now is much like being a squad leader. I'm handing out charts. I'm putting people in the right positions, and handing out music and making sure people are doing what they're supposed to do. It's really not far off marching band, to be quite honest. It's and that having that skill set at that early age really develops where you go later on in life. And I can preach that all day long. But
well,
yeah.
In knowing what you've been through and the career path that you've taken and the success that you've had, to a student right now at Dublin Coffman High School that is looking at their ACT scores, or maybe just how they are in class, and they know that they have something to give the world, that they know that they have something special about them. What words of advice would you give somebody who might be struggling academically right
now? If you know you have a skill or a talent, if you will, that you can more or less monopolize on, go for it. I was there. I was in that position to where it was like, oh, you have to go to college, you have to do this, and then you'll figure it out, type of thing. And there's been multiple times in my life, even recently, where you sit back and think, well, kind of a jack of all trades, but master at one, and that's fixing cars. You get to a point in your life where you're like, okay, I'm good at this, and I can make this work, and if you just keep at it, just like I said, good things take time, and it's the same in my field. I just went about things a little bit differently. The main thing my mom told me when I was that age was, you need to graduate high school. That's it. She didn't really care that I got really, really good grades. I just needed to graduate. And I had private tutors that told me to drop out. They're like, just drop out, get your GED, and go on about your life working. That might work for some people, but I'm glad my mom stuck with it and I was able to graduate high school, because later on in life you kind of realize that whole high school thing was pretty darn easy compared to real life, because it doesn't get any easier. But I would say that if you were in my shoes, just to pursue what you feel is right for you, and that if college isn't right for you, or whatever somebody's telling you, that stick with your gut and go with it. I just I got to a point where I realized, I'm pretty good at this, and I'm gonna pursue it, and then everything kind of develops, and you kind of realize that, oh well, the job that I am is pretty darn handy. I'll always have a career and something that's not going to be outsourced, and it can pay very well. Don't let people tell you that if you're going to go into auto mechanics or any kind of mechanical job, that you're just a dumb grease monkey or something like that, because that could be further from the truth. Cars have gotten so complicated that that's the only thing I wish I would have done, is probably gone and gotten an engineering degree, but I don't know that would help me more than just being on a resume. So,
well, Justin, I want to thank you for spending some time with us today. Your story is unique, it's special, and it's inspiring. And thank you so much for your insights, and thanks for being a part of our discussion today.
You're welcome. I appreciate it.